Hey, what's up? I'm Russ. I'm here with Kelly Green. We're going to do something fun. We're going to roast my portfolio. It's the first time this has ever happened. I don't know what to expect. So, Kelly, thanks for being a part of this.
I think it's going to be a good time. I think if any two people can pull off a podcast roasting a portfolio, it's us.
I hope so. So, before we get into that, though, who are you? Like, what's your cred? Why should anyone care about who you are?
If you care about dividends, then you might care about what I have to say. I've been writing for the financial publishing industry for over a decade now, 12 years. I got a Series 7 right out of college at 20 years old. Working for AXA, decided I was not ready. I didn't want to trade what they wanted me to trade, right? I was more interested in options. And then I started writing about dividends and completely fell in love. So I've been doing that for, 12 years now.
And you're over there at Malden Economics currently, right?
Yeah, Malden Economics.
Dude, John Malden. Anybody that we'll have a link. You got to sign up for his weekly newsletter. I mean, it's must read material and also must see material. I just found out you have a new YouTube channel, so give us the lowdown on that.
On Instagram or on YouTube, you can find me as Down Dogs and Dividends, because I've also taught yoga for 10 years as well, and really want to show people about like being healthy and wealthy, that mindfulness that we need in life and also when we're trading, so that we don't go insane, especially in the market we're in right now.
Yeah, so that will be linked below. You guys got to help her out. She just started the damn thing, so get her to 100. All right, so here we are. This is my current portfolio. You're gonna get into it. Pick out what you like, what you don't like. I guess I will say that my strategy is that I want 85% in funds and 15% in individual stocks, and I've been working toward that allocation because some of the picks I made in the past, even with dividends received, pale in comparison to something like the S&P 500. And I know some of you watching are going to say, but I don't want to beat the S&P 500. Well, you know what? I'm young. I'm 47. I still got a lot of years ahead of me. So more money sounds good to me. So that's kind of why I'm doing that way as I learn to refine my individual stock picking skills. So at least if I'm wrong, I'm not going to blow up my family's financial future. So Kelly, with that preface being said, let's get into it. So what you got?
So I think that's a really important distinction to make. And that's what I tell anybody who's starting a portfolio or who's looking to reevaluate their portfolio. It comes down to, what is your intention, right? I told you that yoga and investing, they matter together. I have this firm belief that your money can only do two things, right? It can either build you wealth or it can create you income, right? And I choose to do that with dividend stocks and a floor of 3.5%. Now, as we kind of go through your portfolio, you have some things that I would immediately, be like, why do you have that? And I do have some questions for you about some of the holdings, but I think you're right. If you are at a point where you're trying to accumulate wealth and you want to just use funds, that's not a bad strategy, because it is hard to beat the S&P 500 unless you have time, or you're subscribing to a financial newsletter who's doing that for you. I think that is a valid viewpoint. Do we want to start with funds, or do we want to start with stocks? Where do we want to start?
Yeah, start with it. If you want to start at the top, that's fine. But yeah, and it's funny you say that, because a lot of people, I think, are just, over on Blossom, I'll see people posting their portfolio and say, hey, these are all the holdings. What do you think? And then I look and they have 3 or 4 funds where the Mag 7 dominate. And I'm like, well, you're really well invested in the Mag 7. I don't know if that's what you wanted. I'm trying to reduce some of the overlap. And hey, in the future, I can always switch to more income, more passive income, dividend paying companies.
I mean, that's the right strategy. What's going to happen is when you decide you're tired of working, you're going to need that big nest egg that you've been building, right? And then you're going to switch to those income stocks. That's going to be where you have to use dividends. There's no way to really secure keeping your money so that you can pass it to your kids and living off of it without those dividends in the future. So,
and one thing I guess I should say that I haven't really made public, I am a disabled veteran, so I do receive a pension from the government. It's not life-changing money, but I don't really factor that in, and I probably should, but I do have some money coming in every month that's tax-free. And I do look at that as like a dividend income every month that's going to be hard to beat. It's not enough to live on.
It's interesting, even if you have a pension, or my mom just started collecting Social Security, she decided to retire at 63. Never at a point in my life have I seen my mom like with her cash envelope paying for her groceries. It's not like she's like having hard times, but she wants to make sure that that money is still there. In my version of your spreadsheet, I sorted by the funds first, but that's okay. So we can go down your list. That's fine.
One more distinction.
Yeah.
So this is actually 4 combined funds. I have my 401k, which is at the top. And then I also have, which I didn't break out in there, and I can make that known if need be, but I have a Roth, I have a self-directed IRA, my wife's Roth, and then also my taxable account. So I guess that's 5. See, I told you I barely graduated high school. So that's 5 accounts that are all in this investment portfolio. And this is basically my wife. This is not our net worth. This is just investments that are either belong to my wife or myself.
That's important to look at also before we have this conversation, because a lot of really great dividend investments that are tax advantaged, like REITs or MLPs or BDCs, they can have tax ramifications if you hold them in a 401k or an IRA. MLPs are the main one. I mean, you have MLPX, which is an MLP fund. That is one that most people will hold in a tax advantaged account because you get pipeline income without the tax ramifications. So it is important to make those distinctions for most people, but have a tax professional. We don't give tax advice. Have a tax professional.
Yeah, and this is not financial advice either. This is just for fun and entertainment, and I'm having fun. So yeah, but now it's funny as I tell you that, I'm like, dang it, I probably should have broke out what is exactly where, because this is what I use to track my own investment portfolio net worth. But I will make some distinctions, and I actually do hold MLPX, which is the Global X MLP Energy and Infrastructure Fund. I do hold that in a retirement account, and I used to hold EPD and Energy Transfer. Those are 2 MLPs, and they're already tax advantaged from the research I did. Is so you kind of want to hold them in a taxable account because you're getting tax benefits. So it's kind of a redundant, a waste of usage holding them in a tax advantaged account from the way I understand it and what I found out.
Well, it's going to trigger a tax event because you're not an investor. So I hold EPD. It's the largest part of my personal portfolio. I was just talking about it earlier with my premium readers. They asked me if we should sell it, and I told them that it's the one stock that I know for sure that I will pass down to my nephews. And for perspective, I'm 35 and they are 1.5, 3, and 5. So we're talking about, like way down the line there, but I have it in a taxable account. Because if you have it in that tax advantage account, you're considered an owner of the business. So you're going to get this business tax. So yeah, I like that you have MLPX because it's just universal. Anybody could invest in it in any kind of account. You're getting a whole basket of these MLPs. I mean, I think it should be in everybody's accounts. Master limited partnerships, those are pipeline companies. For the most part, they have to be related to natural resources.
And I do want to hold. My plan is also to buy EPD, Energy Products Partner. I love them, great company, but I want to hold them in the taxable. And I'm kind of waiting for them to get under $30. They're getting close, but that's one of my plans too. I'm going to buy them in the taxable. I'm just waiting for a little better price.
Yeah, my official I'll give you guys some insider knowledge here. Friends of Russ, my official buy up to price on that is $31.14, and they're just right over that because I want to get a 7%. Right, so $31.14 would make sure you locked in a 7% yield there. So we're getting close to it dropping down, so you can get 7%. But I mean, so let's talk about the funds you got here at the top. Let's say that they're in your 401k. So if anybody is familiar with my work, you'll know that I'm not a giant fan of funds, and it's only because I got a little bit of an ego and I think I can pick better stocks than the funds. But I mean, this is what I do for a living. The other thing is that funds are taking a portion of the profits to move your money around. And that's, by design, right? It's a trade-off so that you don't have to do it. So when I tell people to look at a fund, I tell them to look at the fund objective. So what is the fund trying to do? I tell them to look at the expense ratio so that you know how much you're actually paying for the fund to do this movement for you. And then I tell people to look at the top 10 holdings to make sure that they make sense with the objective. Because sometimes you'll find a fund that it has this really great objective, and then you look at the holdings and you're like, wow, they're all hedges. So you don't actually think this portion of the market is going up? Why am I giving you my money. So I pulled up the top 10 for some of these, which I think is interesting. How do you pick these funds, Russ? What kind of context are we looking at them in? I'm curious.
This is my 401k. I get an employer match, right? So, I mean, that's free money. So I just max out this 401k every year. You're very limited on the choices. This is through John Hancock. There's only so much you can do. DFUSX is from Dimensional Funds. It's basically the S&P 500. I do like that. VVIAX, which is the Vanguard Value Index Fund, I love value stocks. So it's kind of got that bent looking for value stocks. So 60% I have allocated every paycheck and overall into the DFUSX. 30% goes to the Vanguard Value Fund. 10% goes to the small cap growth, which is more risky. I understand it's more volatile, but I buy into that someday the small caps are going to shine and they're going to have their day in the sun. We've been waiting forever. Like that, the meme with the skeleton tapping the fingers. That's kind of that. And that's only 10%. So I do want to have a little bit of that growth, but that's kind of the method to the madness with those three right there.
It's really hard to just look at someone's portfolio and tell if it's a good or bad portfolio because you want to see their mindset. And again, this is where I tell people I'm like, investing and being a yoga teacher or practicing yoga have so many similarities, right? That intention, why are we doing this? If you're not familiar with some of these funds for your audience, just because I have them pulled up, DFUSX, if you look at the top holdings, it's like 7% Apple, 7% Microsoft, 3.5% Amazon, 3% Nvidia. To me, the fact that Russ was like, I want to kind of track the S&P 500. Well, like, yeah, this is what you're trying to do. We talk about Nvidia is what's been pulling up the market for the last year. I always want to put things in context. And the other thing to kind of note about these funds is they have really low expense ratios, 0.08, 0.05, 0.07. I think so often analysts want to say, this isn't what I would do. That doesn't make it right or wrong if it's not what you would do because you're not in the same position. Like, Russ, you have a family and kids. And I live on my own. So like my nephews will be lucky if they get something, right? If not, else I might spend it all. So
they get those shares of VPD coming.
Yeah, I think they will. Because I've locked in. I have a very low cost basis on EPD.
You don't even have to give them birthday gifts anymore. Just give them a little IOU slip. That's EPD shares when I die. So that's as good as money.
I don't know. They pretty much just want ice cream. So they're way cheaper than toys.
You don't need that ice cream. There's a EPD IOU for you. It's better than ice cream.
I think that these funds are all ones that make sense, right? And I like that you pointed out you have the employer match. That's super important. Take that free money. I've been 1099 at most of my jobs. That's just how my business is because I'm a writer. So I don't get traditional benefits, right? I get kind of different benefits being an independent contractor. It's a very different kind of lifestyle, right? I don't consider the tax advantage accounts because I don't have any tax advantaged accounts. I've cashed all mine out and bought stuff because I like to have my money when I want to spend it.
It's helpful to hear. I love hearing this. And that's just one thing that's, and not that it's golden handcuffs, but when you do have an employer giving you a match for that, they also match my HSA, which isn't on here. I don't know if we need to get into the HSAs. They pay for, iPhone every month. They give me the thing. So, there's a lot of benefits. Anyway, I think that gives it a little bit of good context around like why I have those. And yeah, for a lot of you that have 401ks, you probably know that you're severely limited on the choices that you got.
But again, like when you're selecting the funds, if you want to be more involved, those are kind of my three rules, like objective, expense ratio, and check the top 10. So the one that you had that I found interesting was the small cap one, VSGAX. The kind of third party that I use to pull the top 10 holdings. It looks really weird, right? It looks strange because it shows that the top holding is PTC, which is their software company. This top holding, it's PTC Inc. Lifecycle Data. It's just a data management for Lifecycle. So cool tech, got it. So if you look at the top holdings, we've got 0.85%, 0.83%, 0.77%, 0.74%. What is it actually holding? Is it holding cash? Is it holding bonds? Is it holding gold? What is it holding?
I may not have looked at that. So does that mean it's not market cap weighted? Is it equal weighted then? Here's me asking about a fund I'm invested in. I guess I blind spot didn't check that.
Well, that's what I'm looking for. So on their portfolio composition page, and if you've never looked at funds, you basically just type in the fund name, or you can add like profile, or you could put prospectus at the end, because prospectus will give you like the fund documents, which you really don't need, but it'll take you to the right place. This fund holds 572 stocks, which seems like a lot. I'm not a big fund person. They are based off of a benchmark, and the benchmark has 567. So they actually have more stocks than the benchmark. The PE ratio of the things they're holding is 32.4.
Welcome to the new world.
That's you see me like try not to vomit there a little bit as a dividend investor.
Yep. Oh, hey, believe me, I know it, but I hear the argument. I hear people saying that everything is so capital light now, and they make so much money that the higher PEs are justified. And you hear that. This time it's different, and I was skeptical, and that's why I stayed away from Nvidia and Broadcom and all those ones that just rocket shipped up, because I'm like, the PEs are too high. But apparently, until further notice, the PEs are justified. I think it's crazy high. Not like your grandpa's railroad stocks.
No, definitely
Capital
not.
intensive behemoths.
I'm still looking at this. So SoFi, the third party site that I use is not always 100% accurate. And the problem is I know where they pull their data from, and it's the same place that almost everybody pulls their data from. So that's always the problem with using third party sites, is there's only a few APIs that they use, somebody who's also worked as a researcher in this field. So if you're looking at a fund, it's always great. It's even a stock. It's always good to go to the source. They have SoFi Technologies is higher than PTC. So they have 15 million shares of SoFi, and they have 1 million shares of Reddit. Have we figured out how to monetize Reddit? I saw people doing ads on Reddit. I don't know. That's interesting.
It seems to be working, and that's another one I missed. But apparently, I don't use Reddit.
They have DraftKings on here. They do have all 570 stocks listed. But again, if you're talking about 570 stocks, they're going to be small investments, less than 1% each, obviously. I'm always curious, right? Because if you see something that's like in the top 10 holdings, everything's less than 1%, it either means they have a lot of hedges or they have a lot of stocks. And I don't do a whole lot of funds, but it's a lot of stocks. Is that a bad thing? No. Right? Because if you're talking about these stocks that could potentially like shoot to the moon, you want to have a lot of different things. What are the odds for tech startups or short or small caps, right? 50%. But these are the kind of things that I think about when somebody asks me about a fund.
And my thought was too, I wanted, I like hot sauce, so I wanted a little extra kick. I just didn't want to go 100% into DFUSX. So I figured I'd get 60%, just the S&P 500, and then get some value stocks, which I like, as 30%. And then the hot sauce, the little bit of kick, sometimes it gives you indigestion and burns you on both ends. But you know what? That's my 10% allocation to the small cap growth fund.
It makes sense. It totally makes sense.
I hope so.
Yeah, hey, guys.
It'll make sense until it doesn't, I guess.
They have a turnover rate of 21%, which is interesting. Again, I'm not sure this is 100%. I switched back over to the third party. 21% turnover with an expense ratio of only 0.07. You're not going to find something like that unless you're getting a fund from one of like the big guys like Vanguard. But that's what you're going to get in your employer matched account, is you're going to get stuff like this.
And that's kind of why 2 of them are Vanguard funds. And the only one I wanted, S&P 500, that was the only option, was the dimensional funds, was the only S&P 500 option in my 401k. So I kind of had to take it.
Did they have a lot of the, you pick your retirement year ones?
Yep. Target date funds. It was a whole mess of target date funds, and then a bunch of bond funds. And I wanted more growth, and there were, there was maybe like 6 or 7. There was a mid cap fund, but it was limited. It's very limited.
But it's funny because you're doing the exact same thing that a target based fund is going to do. You have like a large chunk of like S&P 500, you have some value, and you have some of the more risky stocks because you have some time on that timeline. And then those date based funds, as you get closer to that timeline, they're going to go safer into those dividend funds so that, your money is safe and secure because you have less time to make it up if we have a market crash. So you're doing the same thing. You don't need to pay them. You got it.
43%, as you can see on the screen, 43% is in the S&P 500, 21% is Vanguard Value Index Fund, and 7% is small caps. And that's of my overall investment portfolio right now. And then I don't know, you may see the next one. Number 4 is VTI at 3.22%. And VTI is in my Roth and my self-directed IRA. So I have that in 2 tax advantaged accounts.
And VTI is another one of those kind of like all purpose. I want to get the effects of being in the market, right? I don't want to have to spend a lot of time on it. I'm not interested in picking my own stocks. Just the market's roaring. Give me a piece of that roaring market, right? That's what VTI is. Again, you're talking about Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Nvidia. Those stocks that are running up the market right now. So makes sense. Expense ratio is 0.03. That's crazy. Like I like to keep it under 1%. Its turnover ratio is 2%. It's those stocks are sitting there, they're growing in value.
And it does have almost, I think, 5,000 stocks because it's the total US stock market. So it's basically the S&P 500. And then again, that little extra hot sauce kick on top of it. You get everything. One of the things I should say is I also view that as it's kind of been a long-term hold position where I can park some cash because I've been stupidly waiting for Costco to get cheaper. I love Costco. I love shopping there. And I remember I was talking to people when it was $500 a share. Say, it's a little bit overvalued here. I'm waiting for it to come down a bit. And of course, when we're at 1,000, I thought, I really want to buy Costco for the long term, but it's just so freaking expensive to me, And so I figured, all right, well, I'll put that money into VTI, and it's done well ever since then. So it's kind of like a holding place that's indefinite right now.
I mean, you're not wrong. Costco's got at like a 50 PE, right? Like I mean, blasphemy. I'm a Sam's Club person. I do most of my shopping in Arkansas, right? The king of Walmart. I'm a Sam's Club person. It is overpriced. And the dividend of 0.5%. I haven't looked at Costco in so long. While we're talking about Costco and how much you want to own it, I was actually super jealous. This is skipping ahead all the way down to 19. But when I saw that you got McDonald's for a decent dividend yield, McDonald's is one of those stocks that everybody wants to talk about. Buffett has Oracle of Omaha. And even when I do like dividend reinvestment, like strategies, and I use an example, I always pick McDonald's from the year I was born just to see like what would happen if you like bought some stock when your kid was born. Or like what they could have as an adult.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Because right now on McDonald's, my cost basis is $177 a share, and my yield on cost is 4% for McDonald's. I only have 10 shares because of when I was buying it, I started accumulating it, and then it kept going up and up and up. And that was where, classic, I got price anchored to the 170s. I think I bought a few shares in the 190s. And then I thought when I saw 200, I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. Now I'm waiting till we go back under 200 before I buy more. And it never did, never went back. And now I'm just sitting on these 10 shares and I can't bring myself to pay over $300. Well, it went under 300 today, but
I mean, there's 2 things that we could talk about here. There's 3 really. There's so many things we could talk about. McDonald's is just a great example of everything, right? I'm always bringing it up as examples. You say you have like these 10 shares, and it seems like you feel like you have to act. And a lot of people feel that way about dividend stocks. They're just sitting there. I always want to say, okay, you've got a 4% effective yield. Okay, pull it out and put it in a CD. You're going to get 4.2%. If your bank is feeling gracious, right? My floor is usually 3.5%. So you're getting your 4%. You're not going to get that if this money is in a box under your mattress. I feel like people have been saying McDonald's is going to start trading sideways for 30 years, and it is not trading sideways. So why would you not just keep something like this? It's a stalwart. It's not going anywhere. I don't even go to McDonald's because of my food allergies, and it just was never my jam. You won't see me at a McDonald's, but it's a good investment. It's a good investment. People love McDonald's.
Same here. I don't eat at McDonald's. I'm not really a fast food guy, but you know what? Every time I drive by a McDonald's, I happen to notice, I don't care what, 10 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock at night, there's always a couple cars in the drive-through lane. And at lunchtime, forget about it. Dinner time, they're slammed. And it's just always got people at McDonald's. So until I start seeing it look like a ghost town, that's been my thought. Like it's I just forget about it. Just leave those sitting there and growing the dividend and capital appreciating, you know?
From the people I know that go get McDonald's, it's consistent. And you can't say that about a lot of brands. Like they figured out what they were doing and they do it.
It's their McAddicts.
I was driving past a really cool looking McDonald's recently and then wrote about McDonald's because that's how I write usually. But I do have a question for you on these McDonald's shares or in general. Do you reinvest any of your dividends?
No, I don't reinvest any dividends. I strategically collect them. So like actually Aries Capital yesterday just paid me dividends and I bought more shares of Aries Capital, but I don't have DRIP turned on, dividend reinvestment turned on for anything because I always feel like, and sometimes again, I should have been dripping McDonald's the whole time, but I'll feel like I can strategically cut it with new cash and redeploy it into something that looks like it's at a good valuation.
So you are reinvesting your dividends just like as a portfolio versus in the individual shares.
At my discretion. And sometimes it's stupid.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's a good point. And if you're not familiar with reinvesting your dividends, it's like most of us have a credit card and the interest compounds. And when we don't pay it off, right, we pay interest on the interest on the interest. And DRIP turns the tables, right? So we're reinvesting the dividends and we're collecting dividends on our dividends on our dividends. And you can buy partial shares when you have the DRIP turned on. I think that's important for people that have smaller portfolios. If your dividend is only going to be like a couple dollars, you could get a quarter of a share versus right, if you're doing what Russ is doing, you're going to have to buy full shares because you're buying them through your broker. Even if you're not reinvesting in those same stocks, you definitely want to keep reinvesting back into the market right now if you have the time. I always tell people if you don't need income to pay your bills right now, then it needs to be reinvested, right? It needs to be building your wealth for that time because there's going to be a time where you want to live off of this money, whether it's intentional or not, right? The universe is going to decide when you need the income, right? So we want that kind of principle to be as big as we can get it.
And I should say the other thing, and it's so silly, is I don't like how fractional shares look. When I look at my brokerage account, I don't like seeing, like 12.27391 shares. I just don't like that. I love seeing the whole full share. And that's one of the other, I don't know, problems I was going to say, because sometimes it is a problem because I've blocked myself from buying something that it would have been good, like with McDonald's all this time, or AbbVie as it keeps going up and up and up. And I'm like, look, AbbVie's $150. It's really expensive.
Oh, let's jump there too. Because your AbbVie entry price was another one that I was like, man, he's got a lot of funds for being, Mr. Dividend over here on the internet. But the entry price on AbbVie, that was a great call. That was a great call as well.
$86, yeah.
You know what year you bought that?
Yeah, I was buying that in 2019. And it's funny, I had just started getting into dividend investing. And I don't know if you're familiar with StockTwits. So I was on StockTwits and it was right when they acquired Allergan. I thought like, wow, Botox, they're going to get even bigger. And I listened to a couple people there say, no, this is saddling them with debt. It's not going to move the needle for them. This is going to drop into the 40s. And I remember specifically one guy saying like, I've been doing this for 25 years and I'm telling you, buy it in the 40s. It's too expensive. So I stopped buying. And yeah, I regret that decision because I just wanted to keep accumulating AbbVie and dumb. So I got my 25 shares with a yield on cost of almost 8% on AbbVie, and just goes to show you that this thing today, it jumped $12 on the Trump prescription website. They love it. All the healthcare stocks the pharma stocks are gonna shoot up now. But
my entry is 154. So I saw that and I was like, man. And this is really funny for anybody who doesn't know the backstory. So AbbVie was spun out of Abbott Labs back in like 2013. And I was actually working for a dividend newsletter at the time. And we had Abbott Labs. So we wrote all these pieces, sell AbbVie. AbbVie's the junk stock out of the two. Like you want Abbott. So Abbott kept all of the medical devices. And AbbVie had Humira and had these like drugs that weren't really popping at the time. So they were like still kind of a little bit scrappier on the pharma side. We were like, no, Abbott Labs is going to be the monster. And AbbVie is a dividend aristocrat. Abbott was too. So when it split, they basically had to keep the same dividend between the two companies to keep that title. So they both had the title. And we were like, no, Abbott's the one you want to keep. It's going to have the higher dividend. 10 years later, I was looking at him and I was like, oh, no, that call was wrong. But AbbVie, you could still get in.
And now AbbVie's market cap is pushing 400 billion and Abbott is about 230 billion. So you don't see that often where the company that was spun out just continues to grow and then eventually dwarfs the parent that spun them out.
Oh, it killed. Humira went on patent cliff last year, which was kind of the last opportunity to get in because the market was so scared. And then they've got Rinvoq and Skyrizi really just stepped in. If you're a TV watcher, I'm not really. About 6 months ago, I turned on the TV and there was a pharma commercial, which I usually tune out. And I was like, wait, what? The commercial said, if you used Humira and you want to try something different, you could try Rinvoq or Skyrizi. So they no longer have exclusivity to Humira. So they're now running commercials that's like, well, if you liked Humira and you don't really want to go generic, you should just try Skyrizi or Rinvoq. AbbVie's doing a lot of cool stuff. They're working on kind of a therapeutic in like the magical mushroom space. So they got a lot of interesting things going on. It's funny that you mentioned allergen, like the aesthetics part of the business is kind of my least favorite part of the business. And it's weird because that time it looked like it was going to be so poppin', right? That part of the business is just being kind of dragged along by Botox. I could talk about AbbVie's press releases all day, but
any other things glaring jump out at you? Any other things you want to hit me on or things you just don't understand, don't make sense to you?
So we've already talked about some trends that I like really love. You've got AbbVie and pharma. You've got the MLPs, which we talked about with EPD and the funds. One trend that I don't think people really recognize right now is BDCs, which are business development corps. You have Ares Capital Corp, which I sold it probably a year ago. I'd have to look. Basically, I cycled it out for a BDC that I thought had a little bit more growth potential and a little bit higher yield, just because my premium subscribers and myself, it would be real easy for us to just have 10 BDCs because I love them so much. If you're not familiar, BDCs invest in a lot of smaller companies. It's private equity, companies that aren't even publicly traded. I personally like Hercules Capital because they're more tech driven, but Ares is a great one. I've had it in my portfolio on and off for a couple years. BDCs are in a rotation right now because the interest rates got so high. Companies decided that they weren't going to borrow as much as they were when interest rates were low. That makes sense. Money was more expensive. Now that interest rates are going down, we're probably going to see more lending happening in the private equity space. And BDCs are beaten down so much because people were paying off their loans but not borrowing more. The portfolios of the BDCs were getting smaller. So investors are kind of panicking and the share value goes down. But we know that as soon as the interest rates goes down, they're going to borrow more. If you are an income seeker or you're looking for a little bit of a growth opportunity, BDCs, check them out.
They can borrow more cheaper, right? And they can facilitate more lending. So, I mean, it's just that cycle.
They're going to refinance because if they got locked into the higher loan rates, they're not borrowing at 4%. If you're a startup, you're not borrowing at 4%. Right? You're getting that added risk on there. So as the rates go down and they trickle through the market, these companies are going to want to refinance and borrow more. That's great. BDCs are going to go up. So I love Ares. Ares is a great one. Yeah, you got a double-digit yield there. 9.96 is what my spreadsheet says. We round it up, right? It's essentially double-digit yield. You can still get 9.5%. Come on. That's great.
And I've been averaging up because I had a cost basis. I've been buying a lot of shares over the last month or so of Ares, and my cost basis was in the 18s. It was in the low 18s. So it's kind of, I don't like seeing my cost per share going up, but I don't know if you're familiar with the Income Factory by Stephen Bavaria. This is kind of one of my positions to simulate that, to get the income just coming in and looking at that high yield and just a little bit of capital appreciation. So, and like I said in the video I did, you're buying these for the income first, capital appreciation second.
Yeah, if any of your listeners, your watchers, they look at my work, I break everything into two categories: your bedrock, which is your wealth building, and then your current yield, which is your income. And that's a great way to think about it. Like, this is a yield first play. You're going to get some cap gains, because by mid 2026, we're really going to see BDCs come back into investor favor.
Good. I get to accumulate now and then they can go up.
I'm going to botch how to say this. So I'll just say the ticker PTLO. Is this just because of your love for Chicago?
It's the hometown hero stock. Actually, Degen Value Investor. I heard he's has a Substack. I heard him on the Acquirers podcast, and I had noticed Portillo's when they IPO'd in 2021, I believe, and it caught my attention. I looked at the fundamentals, didn't really like it, and anyway, I heard his spiel, brought it back on my radar, and it's something that driving around, all over Chicagoland, as I get to see Portillo's, and around lunchtime, they're always slammed. We eat at Portillo's once in a while. Just for me, it's at such a cheap valuation. I mean, I won't get into the whole thing, but Dick Portillo, who I've met, I've worked at his house, the founder, he sold it to private equity to Berkshire Partners, not Berkshire Hathaway, for about $1 billion. And it's trading at less than 500 million right now, and it has twice the amount of stores. If it goes below $6, I'm going to buy 100 more shares, and then I'm done. And it's just kind of one of my fun positions. Talk to my wife about it. She said, "Yeah, let's do it." It's kind of a fun thing for us to feel like we own such a Chicago staple. And the knock on them is they're trying to grow and expand nationwide, and hitting some hiccups there, and the market isn't liking what they're doing. Their CEO just left, and anyway, I don't want to go. I'll take up the rest of our time just talking about the company that doesn't even pay a dividend. But yeah, it's 0.12% of my overall portfolio. It's such a small, it's negligible. If it goes to zero tomorrow, I'll be like, well, that sucked, But I mean, it's really not going to blow us up.
Yeah, but you gotta have those stocks, and I think
it's fun.
That's important for people to realize. Like, have those stocks. I know you sold Starbucks, right? And Russ and I, we talked about. I don't like the new CEO. I think he's a ruiner of brands. If you love Starbucks coffee and you drink it every day, buy a few Starbucks shares. Like, why not? Why not own a piece of the cup of coffee? Just like buy some of it. It's fun.
At my work, when the office people, or I hear people talking about, like, on Fridays, the office, they all love to go out and get lunch, and I keep telling them, like, you should go to Portillo's. Portillo's got, get the chocolate cake shake, anything. And it's funny, people are like, you keep bringing up Portillo's. I tell the guys, I'm like, you should go to Portillo's for lunch. How long's it been since you've been to a Portillo's? It's just fun. It's a fun position for me to have, that if it goes to zero, oh well, but I'm enjoying holding it. So you got to have that fun.
Yeah, dude, 100%. What about, while we're talking about your non-dividend stocks, what's going on with Harrow Inc? Is this an eye care company? What happened here?
Yeah, it's an ophthalmic company, and they came on the radar from a live stream viewer who I've lost touch with maybe about 3 years ago, as a company that they thought could really grow. And it was in the 20s, and I started buying it there. It went all the way down to, I was buying shares at $8, and now it's about 50. They make dry eye disease. They help anesthetize the eye for cataract surgery, right? The silver tsunami's coming. And it's just, people have problems with the eyes, and they just acquired a company that they had a minority stake in, which is you put it on your tongue, and it sedates people so they can have surgery. It's an interesting company, and I'm figuring out what I want to do with that, because the management, they get bonuses when the stock hits certain prices. So that's what triggers their bonuses. One of them was so in the past, it was crazy. It was 10 and then 20 and then I think $30. And now they have, it's been a minute, but I think I remember seeing a 50, a 75 and 100 if the stock gets there. So everybody's incentivized to get the stock to that price. It's been good so far. They're still led by their founder and CEO, Mark Baum. And it's funny. I'm going on and on about two stocks that don't even pay a dividend.
That's what I love about your channel, right? Is so many people want to say, oh, dividends, dividends, dividends. Your watchers hopefully just saw how excited you got about those two stocks. Like, that matters. Like, don't open your portfolio and dread that you're like, oh, I gotta buy more shares of Nvidia today, because buy something that brings you joy, right? Don't throw your money in the trash.
I saw it as a potential rocket ship, right? But one that the founder, he wants to, and it could be full of BS, but he wants to make quality the best eye care products that you can get. He wants to make them as affordable for the consumer as possible, and then to sell more of them to make more money for the company and shareholders. So he's trying to do like a win-win-win for everybody in that orbit that these eye care pharmaceuticals come into contact with. And so far, he's doing a pretty good job. And it was just one of those where the story grabbed me. And I thought, it was at the time, like I said, under $20 a share. And I was like, all right, I'll put a few $1,000s into this, and it'll be my rocket ship. Again, I get this number 200. I'm at 199 shares. And so it's getting hard for me to buy though, because it's at 50. And I'm like, dude, I just remember when it was at 10. It wasn't that long ago.
But I mean, you're up almost 200% on your cost basis. It's not a it's funny because I don't feel like most people consider that a rocket ship.
For me, it is.
It's nothing to scoff about. I got a bunch of quarters sitting in a mason jar downstairs. They're not accumulating 200%. Like, come on.
A lot of the positions I get in this trap where I buy something and it goes up. Warren Buffett famously did this with Walmart. He thought Walmart looked great. He started a position, thought it was at a good value. It went up and he stopped buying because he said he wanted it to come back down to where he was buying it in that range. Never did. It just kept going up and up and up. And then he said, I had this little position that I didn't want sitting around. So he sold it. And he says, because I did that, it cost you shareholders billions of dollars. So if, it happens to Warren Buffett, it happens to all of us. But I guess if you're familiar, might be a competitor, David Gardner from Motley Fool talks about one of his rule breakers, rule, I guess, is you average up. Like you put your more money into things as they're going up, and it feels counterintuitive because you want to wait for it to go down. But he says, no, it means it's working. When something keeps going up and up and up, it's doing something right. It's a good company. It's firing on all cylinders. You want to buy more of that.
It all comes down to how you want to view your investments. So, I mean, we view things a little bit differently because I really do think of all my stocks as a dividend first. So when I look at something and I'm like, this is a company I want to buy, it currently has let's say it has a 5% dividend. I look at the risk. I use my, 12 years in the industry. I look at what's going on in the sector. And then I go, okay, I'd be happy with a 4.5%. So for me, I'll buy it from now all the way up to 4.5%. So, as price goes up, yield goes down. So I use a yield target. I would end up in the same mentality as you. I'd be like, once it hits that threshold, I'm not buying anymore.
It's tough, but you know what? It just goes to show we're all human. We all have these, psychological fallacies and biases that we got to, try and overcome. And that's why it's good that we have all of each other, everybody watching. You can put in the comments what you think. I mean, I guess we could go on for another hour. Maybe there will be a part 2. Maybe we can, I don't know. You could talk about some of your favorite investments next time, or
yeah,
I know you already did mention a few. So I don't know, any recommendations, anything you'd blatantly recommend for me?
Well, I mean, this is not financial. No, it's
understood. In your opinion,
no, I think your strategy is a good, safe strategy. For me, some of these positions, I would want to get higher yields. That's what I do. Would I say that this is a good portfolio for me? No, but also you're 10 years older than me. And that 10 years can make a lot of difference, right? You have a family. If I lost all my money in the market tomorrow, okay, I'd just go make some more. I'd cut back on my, cost of living. I don't have a family to drag around. It's interesting, right? These are things you have to consider when you're building your portfolio. Well, I know you want to do more funds. I would say you don't really have any data center in there, no utilities. That's something I'm big on right now. I took a road trip out through Oklahoma, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri back to Memphis, where I am right now. Wind turbines everywhere. So I went down this rabbit hole, and Iowa is like a mecca for data centers. And I don't know about you, but if you were where do you think a good data center investment is? I wouldn't be like, Iowa. Google, Apple, Facebook, they all have these huge data centers there, and they're building more in Iowa because it's got the 8th cheapest electricity in the US. So renewables are going to be huge, and people want to fight me about renewables. But for the short term, they're going to be important. Utility companies in the Midwest, in Austin, Northern Virginia, Memphis, right? I got XAI right down the street. It's 8 miles south of here. That's one thing that I feel like a lot of people are missing right now. They look and they said they go, I missed out on Nvidia. They don't really invest in it as much. There's some preferred shares where you can get companies that it's similar to like a BDC. There's some companies that aren't publicly traded with common shares that you can get like a portfolio of data centers, and you can like Google data center preferred shares or data center funds to get kind of a basket. So, but I mean, you have the small cap, but that's the only thing I would say. I think that trend is so big, you need something in there.
I'll look into that a little more. I love it. I love the fresh perspective. So we'll wrap it up. We'll land the plane then. We'll just forcefully land it. Where do you want people to get a hold of you? Or if you don't, I don't know.
Yeah. No, don't bother reaching out. No, just kidding. So I'm on Instagram and YouTube under Down Dogs and Dividends. You'll get some yoga content there too, because that's what I do. Malden Economics. I'll shoot Russ a link to my free newsletter, Dividend Digest. I do have a premium newsletter service called Yield Shark. If you want like specific stocks, and those stocks, I keep track of the press releases every week. Every week I send out like what's happened in the portfolio. We do some options trades, some covered calls. So a lot of stuff going on. And yeah, hit me up here in the comments of this episode or on my videos, and let's keep the conversation going. Like that's what I'm here for.
Beautiful. I love it. Yeah, I'll have those links in the description below, and we'll do it again, man. You're welcome back anytime.
Yeah, always a fun time.
All right, everybody else, thank you for sticking around this long. Kelly, we'll see you next time.